Let's say your cruise has taken a stop at Miami Port. You went out for sightseeing and did some shopping there. But when you came back, you found your cruise literally sailing away. What can you do now? Or to say, what will happen from now on? Within the industry, you will be called as pier runner, but while it might feel intensely personal, the reality of the situation is that the ship's departure has absolutely nothing to do with you. It is simply the result of a highly rigid, incredibly unforgiving system of maritime logistics, global supply chains, and basic economics. To understand why a cruise ship will abandon a paying customer, you first have to look at the underlying business model of the entire industry. Fundamentally, you have to understand that when a ship enters a port, it is not just dropping anchor wherever it pleases. It operates under a strict, legally binding contract with the local port authority. The massive infrastructure required to dock a vessel of that size is rented for a very specific, inflexible window of time. If a ship overstays, the financial penalties are staggering. Late departure fines imposed by local authorities can range from $1,000 to over $5,000 per hour. But port fines are merely a secondary concern compared to the logistical failures a delay creates. Leaving a port requires a coordinated group of local harbor pilots, stevedores, and tugboats, all of which are booked for exact times. If a captain misses that window to wait for a late passenger, the ship loses its slot. They must wait for the next available harbor pilot, potentially pushing the departure back by hours. And then there is the physics of fuel. A typical large-scale cruise vessel burns roughly 250 tons of fuel a day. The schedule to reach the next port of call is calculated mathematically to keep the ship at its most efficient cruising speed. Because of the fluid dynamics of moving a 100,000-ton steel hull through water, fuel consumption does not scale linearly with speed. It increases exponentially. If a captain delays departure by 45 minutes, the ship must push its throttles forward to arrive at the next destination on time. Increasing speed by just 10% can increase fuel consumption by up to 30%. That brief delay could cost the cruise line tens of thousands of dollars in extra fuel. The profit margins on a standard cruise ticket simply do not account for absorbing that kind of massive unbudgeted expense. Therefore, the ship leaves, but it does not leave blindly. In the final 60 minutes before a scheduled departure, a highly choreographed protocol is executed. Cruise lines use centralized computer systems to track exactly who is on board. Every time a passenger come and go, their cruise card is scanned. When the all-aboard time passes, the bridge knows exactly who is missing, down to the individual. When they page your name over the public address system, they are not looking for the passenger. They know the passenger is on shore. They are initiating a legal and safety procedure. A security officer is dispatched to the missing passenger's cabin. Using a master override code, they open the room safe. They're looking for two things: essential life-saving medications and a passport. If the passport is in the safe, it is extracted. As the final mooring lines are detached, a crew member physically runs down the gangway and hands that passport, along with the ship's itinerary and local contact information, to a contracted local representative known as the port agent. When the passenger finally arrives at the empty pier, this port agent is the one who delivers the bad news and the passport. But the port agent is not a free concierge. From this moment on, the passenger is entirely financially responsible for themselves. Catching up to a moving ship is not just expensive, it's a geopolitical nightmare. If the passenger's passport was not in the safe, perhaps they took it to the beach or left it out on the desk where security couldn't legally search for it, they can't simply fly to the next port. They are now an undocumented foreigner. Their first stop is a local embassy or consulate to secure an emergency replacement, a process that can take days and incur significant hotel and administrative costs. Even with a passport in hand, there are several logistical hurdles. Buying a same-day, one-way international flight consistently means paying premium walk-up fares, often costing over $1,000 per ticket. But if the cruise happens to be operating out of the United States, passengers will run headfirst into a piece of protectionist legislation from the 19th century, the Passenger Vessel Services Act of 1886, or the PVSA. The PVSA is a cabotage law. It mandates that foreign-flagged vessels, which includes almost the entire global cruise fleet, cannot transport passengers from one U.S. port to another U.S. port without visiting a distant foreign port in between. If a passenger misses their ship in, say, Los Angeles and flies to Honolulu to rejoin the cruise, they've essentially used a foreign vessel to travel directly between two American cities. This is a direct violation of the PVSA. As a result, United States Customs and Border Protection will levy a strict, unavoidable fine of $941 per passenger. The cruise line will not absorb this. They will automatically charge it to the passenger's onboard account. Understanding this immense financial and legal risk brings us to the core business strategy of the cruise industry, and that is shore excursions. There is exactly one scenario where a cruise ship will delay its departure, absorb the port fines, and burn the extra fuel to wait for delayed passengers. And that's if the passengers booked their onshore activity directly through the cruise line. Cruise lines heavily market their own excursions, often at a significant markup compared to local independent tour operators. But what passengers are actually paying for is an insurance policy. By keeping the excursion within the cruise line's vertically integrated supply chain, the ship retains total operational awareness. If a company-sponsored bus breaks down, the captain is notified. The ship will hold. If extreme weather forces the ship to leave the port anyway, the cruise line assumes total financial liability for transporting, housing, and feeding those passengers until they rejoin the ship. If a passenger books an independent tour to save a few dollars, they completely step outside that safety net. So, with the financial, legal, and logistical stakes this high, why do people still miss the ship? The answer rarely involves broken-down taxis or severe injuries. Most of the time, it's the result of a clash between maritime tradition and modern technology. When a cruise ship crosses into different global time zones, the captain must decide whether to adjust the ship's internal clocks or remain on the time zone of the home port. Because adjusting the schedules of thousands of passengers, dining services, and crew shifts is logistically complex, ships frequently just remain on ship time. However, when a passenger steps off the boat, their smartphone immediately connects to the local cell network. The phone pings the local cell tower and automatically adjusts its clock to the local time zone. If the local port is an hour behind ship time, a passenger's phone will confidently display that they have a full 60 minutes remaining for departure. They'll sit down for another drink, completely unaware that back at the dock, the mooring lines have been dropped, the thrusters are engaged, and their multi-million-dollar floating hotel is already on its way to the next destination. So, if you go on a cruise, buy the travel insurance, wear a cheap analog watch set permanently to ship time, and whatever you do, watch the clock, because that cruise will leave you if you're late. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.